Hello, today we will be editing plans and sections and elevations using Photoshop. Before we begin, if you are completely unfamiliar with Photoshop, please go through some of the basic tutorials that you see in front of you in the welcome screen of Photoshop. So there's get to know Photoshop and change image size and work with layers and so on. We will be introducing a few of these things right now as we work. However, I strongly recommend if you're interested in editing photos a lot on Photoshop to go through these tutorials, and it will help you in editing pictures. However, it's important to note that these are not directed for interior design and architectural uses, simply because the main purpose of Photoshop is to edit photos in general, regardless what these photos are. Now, in interior design and architecture, we normally use Photoshop for three things. One is rendering plans that are generated from drafting software such as AutoCAD and ArchiCAD. Those are typically black and white, and they're just lines. And we start adding colors and materials, and we start rendering from very basic drawings. The other use is for post-production, which is for retouching on the images that are extracted from 3D modeling software, where materials already introduced, colors more or less introduced, but we just put a small touch and we start retouching on these shots or these generated images from the 3D model. The third use is pretty away from modeling and rendering, but it's also for the use of setting our layouts for posters and poster design where the project is being presented in a more professional way. Of course, to do that, we can always alter the canvas size, or in other words, the paper size that we're working with, and we can always alter the resolution, which is the number of pixels per unit. Now, I'm going to start by clicking on New File here. And when I click on the New File, I find this window in front of me that specifies, or that asks me to specify the canvas size, the resolution, and all that. There are a few default sizes that are introduced by Photoshop. Alternatively, I can always use mine or my settings and my customized pages by editing these specs or presets right here. I can also save it once I'm done editing it. I can also save it by pressing here so that it always comes out in this menu when I want to start a new document. So I'm going to be working with A3 size. A3 width is 279 millimeters by 420 millimeters. Notice how here we're talking about millimeters, so I need to make sure that I'm using the correct units. I think the default value is typically inches or pixels. I'm going to change that to millimeters because this is the unit I'm using for my work. Next is the orientation. You can see that if the width is 279 and the height is 420, that means it's going to be on portrait. I'm going to press on the landscape orientation, and these numbers will automatically swap. So if I press here, you can see that the width is now 420 and the height is 279. I'm going to move forward to the resolution. One thing to note about resolution is that of course, higher resolution means higher quality of a document, but it also means it's a bigger file, which makes it difficult sometimes to work with if it's the resolution, if it's way too big, or if the resolution is too high. And if, of course, the resolution is too low, then the quality of the image will be too low and therefore will not be visible or will not be pleasant to look at. I'm going to stick to a resolution of 300 just because I like to give myself a bit more room because the document I'll be working with is not too big. So 300 will be good enough. And of course, the unit is pixels per inch. Of course, you can change that to pixels per centimeter, but I'm just going to use 300 pixels per inch. You can always go ahead and start editing your contents or your specs or your presets. You can change the background color. Right now, I'm going to keep it white. Here, I'm going to change the name of this preset and call it, say, plan render. I can save it right here if I want to. Alternatively, I normally like to use the paper size that I use so that I can always refer to it whenever I want to set it in. So I'm going to type this as A3 paper, and I will save it. And again, it's asking me, sorry, I should have pressed on this icon before. So this is A3 paper, and all my settings are correct. And I'm going to click on Save Preset. And you can see that this preset is now under my saved presets. So I can always refer to A3 paper whenever I want it, instead of having all these presets input every time I want to work with A3. I'm going to click on Create. And now you can see that I have a canvas right here. This is the paper that I set. The background is white. That's because this is how I set it to be when I was working my presets, or when I was setting up my presets. On the right-hand side, you can see a panel that has a lot of options. Maybe your options might look different than mine, but that's fine as long as you have the layers tab open and it's there and it's preset. So with Photoshop, we always work with layers. Anything I do, any picture I import will automatically be placed on a layer by itself, which makes things a bit easier. You can always turn on and off layers from this icon right here, this little eye icon. If you press on it, it will turn off. And if you press on it again, it will turn on again. You can see there's a lock picture right next to the layer. That's because this layer is locked, simply because it's the background layer. If you want to unlock it, you can just double click on this icon and it will automatically unlock. So if I double click here, you can see that it turned out to be layer 0. I have this layer style window open. I'm going to accept it as is and click on OK. And now the layer is recalled as layer 0, or sorry, titled as layer 0. I can turn the layer on and off by pressing here. I can rename the layer by double clicking on the layer name, and not on the side, on the area next to it, but on the layer's name, and call this background. I can always lock it again by pressing on this icon here, and it's back to being locked. Now, when I lock the layer, that means I cannot change it, I cannot edit it, I cannot move it. Anything I change or I do will not take place on the locked layer, which is very helpful in some cases. At the bottom of these layers, you can see that I can edit my layer. So I can either delete a layer. Now, because this is locked, I cannot delete it. If I unlock it by pressing on the icon here and click on OK, I can delete my layers and start altering them. I can also press on the plus sign where I can add a new layer. So this is layer 1. I can add as many layers as I want. I can also group my layers. So if I select the layers I want, I'm going to click on layer 5, click on Control button on my keyboard, click on layer 5, layer 2, and layer 1, and then press on this icon, and they will be formed as a group. They will be grouped together. So they're still separate layers, but they are in one group. That helps me manage my layers a bit more. So if I press on this arrow next to the group, a drop-down menu comes out and all the layers expand. Now, again, I can rename the group to, say, test, click on enter, and now I have the group. Now I can either turn each layer within the group on and off individually, or I can turn the entire group off, and so I will stop seeing all the layers that are within this group. This will come in handy in big projects, and we'll be using these later. So I'm going to delete the entire group, and that will include the layers inside it. So if I press on my delete button, alternatively, I can click on this icon at the bottom that says delete layer. Once I delete the group, it will ask me whether I want to delete the group only and keep the contents, or I want to delete the contents and the group. In this case, I want to delete the contents and the group. I will also delete this layer to end up with the background layer that I originally created. On the left-hand side, you will see a set of tools. Those are the most commonly used tools that you usually need. There's the move tool, there's the marquee tool, the lasso tool, the crop tool, etc. One of the important tools that we'll be using is the bucket tool as well. Right now, it's the gradient tool. And of course, the colors at the bottom right here. At the top, you will see menus, the file menu, edit menu, just like in any other software. And below that, you will see some options that will change when you change the tool that you have selected. So right now I have the move tool selected. So I have some options at the top that are specific to the move tool. If I choose the marquee tool instead, you will see that the upper part is now changing according to the tool that I'm using. This will keep on changing as I change the icons I have or the tools that I have pressed. Now, another thing we need to note within these tools is this little arrow at the lower left, the lower right corner of the icon. If I long press on it, this means I can come up with different options or different or variations of this tool. It can be a rectangular tool, a rectangular marquee tool, an elliptical marquee tool. And here we need to note that sometimes these icons, or in most cases, these icons change according to what variant you have activated. So right now I have a circle shape. In your view, it's possible that it's a rectangular shape. That's simply because if I click here and choose the rectangular marquee tool, this will turn back to a square. So don't worry if you can't find the same exact tool. To make things easier, maybe we need to note the keyboard shortcuts. So if you keep your mouse a little bit for a few seconds on the icon, you will see that it says Move Tool V. That means the letter V on your keyboard is what activates this tool with all its variations. So if I long click here, you see that the Move Tool is shortcut. The Move Tool's shortcut is V, and it's the same for Artboard's tool, and same thing for Marquee tool. Regardless of its variations, it's always the M button in my keyboard that activates this tool. Now, when we turn to the colors at the bottom, you can see that I have two colors. One is on the top and the other one is at the back. That's visible, for instance, if we wanted to use this gradient tool. So it will be moving from the green color gradually towards the white color, simply because I have the white color set in the background. I can always switch them so that the white becomes in the front and the green becomes at the back. So it starts from white and moves towards green. Now, in cases where I have solid colors, the upper color is the one that's active. So if I wanted to draw, say, a rectangle, now it should be green because simply the color at the top is the green color. If I flip them, the rectangle will be white because the color at the top is white. If I wanted to change these colors, I can always press on them and I have the color picker open and I can choose whatever colors I want, either using this this tab or this these color selections by eye, so I can select them as I like the color. Alternatively, I can input the HSB values or the RGB values if I wanted to repeat a color that I already have open. I can also add the color to swatches, which is a set of the colors right here that are being used in my document right now. So this is a very quick introduction of Photoshop. We will move forward to starting with our rendered plan. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to click on File, and I'm going to import my drawing. Now, before I import my drawing, there's something I need to note. In your AutoCAD file, you need to print out, or you need to export or plot your file as a PDF file. Of course, from your layout, you need to set it and set your scales, and you need to make sure that all your lines are closed properly, all your layers are properly adjusted, and all your lines are drawn on appropriate layers. You also need to make sure that your hatch layer is turned off, your furniture layer is turned off, your dimensions layer is turned off, text and annotations are also turned off. So it's important that you end up with the minimum or the basic drawing that you started with. So we will be importing our drawing. I'm going to go back to the file that I have on my desktop. I will drag this file, go to my Photoshop file, and drop it right here. So because this is a PDF file, it's asking me which page I want to have imported into this Photoshop file. Now, naturally, I only have one page in my document, so naturally, this is what I'm going to be choosing. I will click on OK. So now I have my plan imported into my document. As I said, this is an A3 document. If you needed to work with A2, then of course you need to set your presets to A2. Now, I'm not going to change dimensions of my document. So now it's waiting for me to change the proportions and dimensions and place it. So I can either drag it and place it wherever I want to place it using my mouse, or I can start editing and changing the size of my drawing. Now, I don't want to change the size of my drawing, so I'm going to cancel this. I'm going to go back to my desktop and drag my file again to Photoshop and drop it right here. Once again, this is only one page, so I'm going to click on OK, and my document is here. I can, of course, relocate it and change its location in regards to the paper. Once I'm done, I'll hit my Enter button on my keyboard. Now, you can see that there's a new layer here that says tutorial file layout one, which is the name of the PDF file that I have imported. I'm going to double click on this file, on this layer's name, rename it as plan. I'm going to click on enter, and now I have my layer named as plan in front of my background layer, which was set when I first introduced my document. The next thing I need to do is start a new layer by pressing on this plus icon at the bottom. I'm going to rename this as hatch. I'm going to be introducing my hatches. The first thing I need to note is that the hatch layer is activated. So you can see that it's in a lighter gray color. So it's distinguished, it's highlighted. So it's the active layer now. Any changes I make will affect my hatch layer. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the left-hand side menu, and I'm going to press on this magic wand tool. It's possible that it looks like this in your view, or like this. Alternatively, you can press on W button on your keyboard, and it will automatically choose this icon so you can locate it. And then I'm going to long press on this icon, as we mentioned before, and choose the magic wand tool. I'm going to go back to my plan layer so that the selection is made based on the plan layer. And I'm going to click inside this wall thickness, which is the area I want to be hatched. So I'm going to press here. I'm going to click on the shift button so you can see how I have a plus sign under my cursor. That means I'm adding to my selection. So I'm going to press here. I'm going to press here. So now all my walls are selected. Next is I'm going to go to the hatch layer so that I can add the color on my hatch layers. I'm going to go to my color palette, or to my colors menu. I'm going to choose maybe grayish color. I'm going to click on OK. Notice how here this became gray. Next is I'm going to go to the bucket tool, which is under the gradient tool. Alternatively, you can click on G to locate it, long press on it, and choose the middle option, which is paint bucket tool. Once I do that, my cursor turns into a bucket. So I have a bucket whose paint now is gray. I'm going to press inside this area, and now all my drawings or my walls are hatched using a simple click on a separate layer called hatch. In our next tutorial, we will be covering the rest of the interior space, and then we will be covering how we need to introduce our furniture.